red corner, blue corner, right here on Stadium. You see how many days are left? And when you came in today, I think you had a little bit of an attitude.
I did.
Is this how it's going to be?
This is how it's going to be.
All right.
I didn't sleep too good last night, to be honest with you.
Oh, you're nervous?
No. I'm just visualizing the game.
You heard it here first, people. Jake Butt is nervous. He said he didn't sleep well last night.
I don't need to be well rested for this game. It doesn't matter. I'll play it where it lies this week.
All right. I'm just letting you know. Jake Butt, simple. Michigan All-American tight end, Mackey Award winner, team captain, did all of the things while he was in Ann Arbor.
Joshua Perry, also team captain for the Ohio State Buckeyes. National champion, though. Maybe one of the teams this year will be a national champion. Can your Buckeyes get the second one? Michigan, first one in a long time.
Yeah,
winner of the game has a real shot at it.
Yeah, buddy. It's a really fun day here. We want you to join in with us as well. Follow us on red_corner_blue corner on Instagram. We just put out a fun skit that you guys will enjoy. We also want you to get involved on today's poll question. Who will be the player of the game? You can scan the QR code to vote on that.
So with it being the game, let's go back down memory lane, because though these teams are filled with veterans, there is a few guys. Kyle McCord, this will be his first time, really the centerpiece, playing in this game. So JP, as you go back, do you have any nerves, any jitters, any big time memories? What is this? Wait a second. We got a little game real quick, actually. It's a puzzle.
Oh, boy.
JP, take us away. What do we got here? Okay.
I think it's Jake Butt scoring a touchdown.
This is in the Big House,
it
2013.
This was 2013.
Graham Glasgow, someone's celebrating.
This is not fun.
Who's
because
that?
You see me on the ground, which is really funny. I'm glad y'all brought this up. If we could zoom all the way in on this. This is a gold pants pendant. Now, this is what the Ohio State Buckeyes win when they win the game. We get one of these. I've got 4 pairs because I never lost to Michigan, including the 2013 pair, which I am wearing today. So we got Jake Butt in the end zone there. The score was 42-41. The Buckeyes won that. So you can have a little fun with your little photo. Jake, I'm glad you got yours on the field, but your boy got the real prize right here. So nice try.
I thought this was a cool thing, but I'm sick to my stomach. I was 18 years old. That was my first game.
And we got a Michigan dude producing this show too, and y'all thought you could play me. Well, you played yourself. So how about that?
Well, that tied it up 35-35 in the fourth quarter, and then we came down to the wire, the 2-point call, the infamous 2-point call. We didn't get it done. Someone missed an assignment, but the day was saved.
Hey, man,
that's team defense, right?
It's a team sport.
Okay, in all seriousness, though, because, let's hit this from 2 angles. We mentioned Kyle McCord. This is really his first time leading the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's on the road. Take me back to your first game in the game, JP. What was that experience like, and what advice would you give to Kyle McCord?
Yeah, I played in this game as a freshman, and I was mostly a special teams guy, but I did get a couple of reps on defense, and those reps I was losing my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is the pinnacle of college football. Made a couple of plays, so you settle in by doing that first. My first time on the road was that 2013 game. The reason I was nervous for that game is because I knew we had a fraudulent defense. We were not good on that side of the football. And I felt like if somebody had the opportunity to scheme us, we would give up a lot of points and a lot of yards, which is something that we did. So I think the confidence needs to build from within for Kyle McCord. And I think that he can have some of that confidence from going on the road against Notre Dame and getting that win. And he made some mistakes in that game, no doubt. But the idea that they were able to pull out that win gives him a confidence. Playing against Penn State, even though that was a home game, that was the biggest test of the year. And it wasn't a super explosive offensive performance, but he made the plays he needed to make. And he also realized that he's got a really good defense. It's not giving up a ton. And so for Kyle McCord, I think this is as much about the cast that he has around him and the experiences that he's been through this year more than it is about this game in and of itself and how he needs to impact it.
I think you're spot on. You know, if I can go back to my own experience, like I've said this, like it was literally like a spiritual psychedelic experience. I remember in that tunnel 2013, you know, I'm 18 years old, and we go out of our locker room, and there's Jeff Hireman and a bunch of Ohio State Buckeyes, and everyone starts barking, and it almost was a fight. I remember my pupils almost being dilated, like my vision was so high, my senses were so high. There was this show on like Discovery Channel, I think it was called like Superhuman, where they talk about people in ultimate fight or flight modes. Like they bench press a car off of them because they're so juiced up, right? That's what I felt like in this game. You hinted at it, just the extra fire. My advice for Kyle McCord is similar to your thought process, where, like, listen, there's emotion going on in this game. Is it nervousness or is it excitement? But if you could just look at it as emotion, emotional energy. The key for McCord is And it needs to start now, and it needs to start all season. He needs to go into Ann Arbor and wake up that Saturday morning with absolute and utter belief in himself that he is the guy to get this job done. You cannot have a seed of doubt running through the blood in your body or you're screwed. For McCord, he needs to know that Ryan Day is going to put him in position, that he's got all the weapons around him. You cannot blink in the biggest moments. You got the talent to do it, but the nervousness could be the worst thing to work against you this weekend.
You know, you've talked about this before too, but when we were playing, I think you have said that the difference between our teams is that Ohio State always believed. Like we always felt like we were going to win regardless of what the situation was. And the program that you were in at the time you were there, that belief wasn't as convicted. So for Kyle McCord, he's got to get back there. But the momentum's on the other side for that. Michigan is the team with the belief right now. Kyle has to get that reinstilled, but we know he's going to play a big factor in this game. There are also some really key matchups that we're looking out for too. Wonderful players that are trying to cement their legacies through a victory here. What is the biggest matchup when you start to boil it down?
To me, I really think, you know, this game is going to be won and lost in the trenches. And off of that, with both quarterbacks, what helps them is the run game. The run game is the reason Michigan won in 2021 and 22. It's the reason they've turned this thing around. So the key matchups are in the two running back rooms, whether it's Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Blake Corum, of course, healthy. Really hasn't played in this game. Part of the reason he came back was to play in this game. Travion Henderson, healthy, did not play in the game last year. Both of these running back rooms are such an integral part of the offense. I'd imagine that the winner of this game, we're going to look back Saturday afternoon and say, whichever team was able to run the ball more efficiently and better in the big moments, that's going to be the team that wins the game, JP.
I like that, and I think that everybody's trying to write narratives here too from the running back room. Where Travion Henderson, everybody said he lost his step, and for Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, it hasn't been the same performance that we saw from them last year. So I think for all the running backs in this, they're trying to make sure that people know who they are. I'm looking toward the outside, which I think is going to be a really key matchup here. Marvin Harrison Jr., we've talked about him numerous times on this program and how good that he is. He needs to be a big feature here to help his quarterback in Kyle McCord. But he's going to have a lot of resistance in his matchup with Will Johnson, who I think is one of the best cornerbacks nationally, who doesn't get talked about his play like that. And for me, I go back to last year's matchup. I'd probably go out on a limb and say that Will Johnson got the better of Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a year better now. I think that his releases are better. We were talking about this before the show. I don't think they're great. He catches a lot of contested footballs. And for Will Johnson, I think that this is going to be the #1 challenge for him all year. He hasn't seen a player like it, and he's going to have to come out early and win some of those battles. But this is going to be the one to watch for me in terms of a game within the game.
What I like about your answer is what I like about this game is what makes it the greatest rivalry in sports is like this is a look into the, I don't want to call it, you know, Jerry Rice versus Deion Sanders. I don't want to call it that, right? Those guys, that's in a category of its own.
Would you call it David Boston versus Charles Woodson?
Could it be?
I mean,
could it be? You know, seriously, that's what it could be in time when these guys have long NFL careers. What are we going to look back and say? Like, that's the potential. I'll be interested. I mean, I don't know if you have Will Johnson follow Marvin Harrison Jr. all game, but you may do that more this week than you do versus any other opponent. Of course, he's one of one. So I think for a young cornerback, too, here's the key is for Will Johnson, he's going to have safety help over top. So that the key for him, and you know this as a defensive guy, knowing where your help is and when to take your chances. Because one thing that's going to be, we know for certain, is McCord's going to throw it 18's way. Will Johnson has to know when it's his time to try to undercut and maybe pick a ball off, or when to pass that route onto the safety and just play underneath coverage.
Yeah, it's going to be big. Like, I think everybody's going to have to be on top of their game, and playing against a savvy wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr., too, you really have to know when to take those chances. I want to talk on the lines of scrimmage here real quick, too, because I think that there have been things that have been exposed as we get later on into the year. We know that Ohio State is not great at the line of scrimmage, right? That's their biggest weakness coming into this year. It's something that they've struggled with. I believe that Michigan has guys on the interior that can certainly cause trouble. But when I look at the tackles for Ohio State, I think that the left tackle in Josh Simmons has gotten better. Fryer, I'm not exactly sure about him, but I don't fear the Michigan edges as guys who can win one-on-one. Would you agree with that assessment?
I wouldn't fear them, but what helps those edges is the blitz packages from Jesse. Here's one thing we know for sure.
Crazy.
Sainristil's coming off that nickel at some point, right?
Yeah.
So then it's on the edges are then that edge is going to going inside of the B gap, and the edge then becomes Mikey Sainristil off the edge.
Yep.
So that plays into this the tackle as well. And gosh, man, McCord's stats on the road, right, on the season this year is 8 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the road. Really, we could be looking at 5 if Notre Dame capitalized when they had the rat safety undercut his throw. So pressure is going to be a big thing for McCord this weekend and the O-line as a whole. Can they keep the pocket clean? Here's one more matchup. Let's talk about an X-Factor, JP, because one play that comes to my mind last year is when C.J. Stroud drops back and he floats one to the end zone. Cade Stover was wide open, but that ball just hung in the air just a second too long, and Mikey Sainristil comes and bats it out. There will be an X-Factor in this game. Who is that player that you're keeping your eyes on?
It's Sonny Styles for me. And OSU secondary is banged up. Lathan Ransom probably not expected to play in this one. So he's going to have to do more moving around than initially anticipated. This is a player who can play in the box. He is a player who can play as an overhang off the edge. He's great in blitzing, and he can play in the middle of the field. And I think for Ohio State, as much as they can move him around and create the matchups that they want for their defense, for him to be able to have success, I think is going to be big. It's putting a lot on his plate, and he's still a young player, but I think the reason why, as a guy who grew up in Columbus, that he came to Ohio State was to have that opportunity. So I want to see what it looks like on Saturday.
Well, that leads me into my X factor. I'm going to pick Colston Loveland, and I think it's a perfect lead-in because Ohio State played Minnesota last week. I was on the call. Minnesota has a great tight end in Brevin Spanford. I said, who's going to match up with them? Well, they said Sonny Styles. So they basically told me in that moment it's going to be Sonny Styles on Colston Loveland. Why the tight end matters is, as a true freshman, he made big-time plays in this game. He had a touchdown off of a double move. JJ has been a little bit shaky at times. And a tight end with a big catch radius and solid hands, and Colston has proven that he's a guy that makes a lot of contested catches. JJ is going to be looking to Colston's way on critical third downs, need to sustain drives, and down in the red zone as well. So Colston Loveland, Sonny Styles. Man, there's so many good matchups we can talk about in this game. I can't wait for that.
A couple big conversions for Colston against Maryland last week. I think it was also the receiver he was trying to target when JJ threw that interception as well. So he's going to have to be careful picking his chances with Colston, but you know how I feel about him. The next Jake Butt could be a Mackey Award winner by the time he leaves Ann Arbor. All right, time for our first break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. But on the other side, we're going to look at the Big Ten West. What has Matt Rule happy and angry at the same time? We're going to discuss exactly that coming up.
happier about where we are. I couldn't be angrier about our record, if that makes sense. And two things can be true. Two things can be true.
All right, we're back on Red Corner, Blue Corner. Jake, can both things be true?
Always. I believe oftentimes two things are true, and that's the right way to approach this, right? That's the right way to say I think Matt Rule believes that there's more on the bone here for the team, and I think he believes that this team could head into another stratosphere with time and with potentially some more resources.
Yeah, I think the idea that they have made some of the strides behind the scenes that he wanted to make coming in is a positive, but also they should have won more games in his mind. And I think that every coach feels that way when they have losses. So I'm here for what he said. Now, Nebraska is 5-6. They're fighting for a bowl berth. They're heading into a game against Iowa, who will represent the Big Ten West in the Big Ten championship game. The Huskers spoiled Iowa's hopes last year of going to Indianapolis. What is the path here if the Huskers are going to pull off the upset?
Well, it's kind of off your conversation, what you just said, because why they've lost a lot of games, and the frustrating thing is it's turnovers. They just keep giving the ball away always. I'm tired of saying it. I'm sure Nebraska fans are tired of hearing it. I know Matt Rule's tired of talking about it. It's the same thing. And the path to victory with Iowa, take the ball away, right? So Nebraska, first and foremost, has to protect the football. They have to limit explosive plays in the run game. They have to force Iowa to try to drive the ball consistently down the field. And then they have to take advantage when their moments come about. But I haven't seen it enough at this point. But last year, I thought Iowa was going to close out the season anyways. Nebraska got it done.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you get out of a rivalry game, so I totally get it. Iowa, certainly the more consistent team, but Nebraska has some weapons that scare you, and I think a defense is pretty good. But we want to talk about something that we're doing here, Jake Butt and I, and it's called The Game Gives Back. We've got a fundraiser going here. You see Jake holding up the QR codes. We have surpassed $50,000 as a collective. Michigan's in the lead right now. But the money is going to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Ohio and Southeastern Michigan. All of the proceeds are going there. We're not paying any overhead. There's no salaries, no marketing, none of that. We want to directly impact the families we're trying to support here. And quite frankly, this has picked up a lot of traction here in just under a week.
The best thing about this rivalry is there's emotion, there's hatred, there's desire to win, but we can take all that emotion and use it for good. If you donate to the Boys and Girls Club of Central Ohio through thegamegivesback.com because you love Ohio State, great. If you donate to Southeastern Michigan because you hate Ohio State, great. It doesn't matter how you get there. As you said, JP, the best thing about this is 100% of the proceeds, as you see it there, over $50,000, is going to go back to children and families to feed them and provide basic necessities during the holiday season. I mean, just think about what that says for two fan bases, two rivals that hate each other to come together and stand for something bigger.
Yeah, and especially with all the, the nasty things that are being thrown around on social media this week between this rivalry. I want people to understand that us guys who played in it have a respect for one another and a respect for the different programs, and we care about our communities and the other community as well. And we'd like to share that, and we want you to express it as well. So if you can jump in and donate whatever you can this holiday season, that would be awesome for us.
That's exactly why it's so important, too, because of all the extracurriculars this year and the back and forth and all the drama. This is why we need to stand together even more so now at thegamegivesback.com. Okay, let's head over. Last little bit on the game here. Of course, that we've hit it from so many different angles. But play calling, whether that's offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator for each team, could be the difference. JP, which coordinator do you think will play the biggest factor or needs to play the biggest factor this weekend?
It's Jim Knowles. It's Jim Knowles. There was a reason that he was brought into Ohio State, and it was after the 21 game. And what happened? Ohio State's defense got ran through, gave up entirely too many points after a bad season. So they bring him in year one, and we all think that Ohio State's defense is improving. They showed signs of improvement. Then they get into the game in 2022, and the defense did not do what they needed to do. They gave up entirely too many big plays. They played well for a lot of spots in that game, and then the biggest spots, they folded like a lawn chair. And so for Jim Knowles, he's going to have a plan here to contain an offense for Michigan that has a J.J. McCarthy, who, when he's on, he's dynamic, that has a Blake Corman, Donovan Edwards, where Donovan hurt you last year and Blake wants to hurt you this year, that has a Colson Loveland. We talked about it. And so I think he was brought here for this game,
Yeah.
and he's got to call the best game of his life.
Look, I think you're exactly right, and I think it's going to be harder for Michigan to move the ball consistently this game. So that's why I'm going to go with Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for Michigan, because here's what I know. What Ryan Day has done this year has been phenomenal in scheming Marvin Harrison Jr. opportunities to catch the football. Pre-snap, post-snap. It's going to be on Jesse Minter to play the mind games, dropping linemen in simulated pressure into those zones where Kyle McCord's going to be looking for Marvin Harrison Jr. Change the post-snap picture on McCord so you can create some turnover opportunities, which will then allow your offense a little bit easier time against Jim Knowles.
Those sim pressures are huge.
Big.
Kyle McCord almost threw it to Minnesota last week on a simulated pressure, and some of the big guys from Michigan have gotten their hands on the ball with that too. So it'll be a fun battle there. We're going to take one final break right here, though, on Red Corner, Blue Corner. And when we come back, we'll be joined by our friends from Rivals Down South, and we're going to talk playoffs. Could Michigan be left out of the top 4? We'll get Jake's take coming up next. All right, welcome back into Red Corner, Blue Corner. Time for the conference clash. Here we got our friends from Rivals Down South. We got T-Bob Hebert and AJ McCarron. And before we get started here on some college football conversation, I want to pull up a comment that somebody sent us because there is a really good question here that needs to be answered. And for one AJ McCarron, this one revolves around you. Mark Carmen said he's excited to hear from AJ whether he'll be contributing to the Michigan or Ohio State boys and girls clubs. Now, AJ, we saw you over there on the sidelines in the NFL game, so we know the checks are coming in. So we got to know, which side are you going to be supporting?
The McCarron boys club for right now. I have three sons myself, so tell him Mark to send that question down to my wife on Twitter. Maybe she'll respond.
I mean, do you not need to like try to gain some headway with the Who Days here? Like I'm not, you know me, I'm not a geography guy, right? I wasn't even sure that I knew that New Jersey was. I'm still confused if New Jersey's a state or a city. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is, like in Cincinnati, is that's mainly all Ohio State fans, right?
I don't know. I think it's a mixture though of like Ohio State fans that are, Cleveland Browns fans or Cincinnati Bengals. Like I'm still not 100% sure on that.
Well, listen, AJ, we'll hit you up. We'll be excited to have you. If you think about it, you want to gain some traction with the Buck fans, we'd be happy to have you. And that's even coming from me as a Michigan guy because it's all going to a good cause. But I do need you guys' help because what I'm about to say, I think everyone knows where I will stand on. Former Buckeye great Joey Galloway. He came out with his top 6 rankings, and he's not showing Michigan any love. Take a look at this one, guys. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Washington, Florida State at 3 and 4, Oregon at 5. A 1-loss Oregon ahead of undefeated Michigan. Fellas, from the Rivals Down South, can I get an objective opinion here? How is Michigan out of the top 4? Help me make sense of this.
Look, this feels like Galloway maybe being a little too close to this, maybe wanting to punish Michigan a bit for the cheating or whatever. Look, do I feel less strongly about Michigan than I did pre-Penn State game and with some of the drama and having to not have their head coach on the sideline? Like, certainly, right? I thought that going into that Penn State game that was going to be Michigan's chance to clearly just go over the top and say, no, we are the number 1 team in the country. I didn't end up there on the other side. Like, I think it's going to be a great game this weekend. I feel like these two teams are more equivalent than I thought, but I still believe that, I still believe Michigan's the top 4 team in the country. And I will still maintain that I don't know why we give Oregon so much credit. Texas, they've been playing with fire, but their opponents have way better combined record than does Oregon's. Alabama seems to be playing great late. Like, we're kind of crowning Oregon just for beating a Utah team that now has amassed 4 different losses. So, no, it's absurd that Michigan's not there. What's going on, y'all? Welcome down to Rivals Down South. Before we get into Jordan Travis talk, AJ, what about you, dude? What do you think? Should Michigan be in that top 4 still?
Yes, 100%. Listen, I still have Michigan at the number 4 spot. If anything, I bumped Florida State out. I don't think Florida State's resume throughout the year is as impressive as some like to believe. Miami has played well early in the year and really had a chance to win that game and played them well down in Florida State. So Florida State, for me, is out of the top 4. I still think Washington's a better team than Florida State. So I'm putting Washington in my top 4 to replace them.
All right, boys, look, let's dive in to a little CFP tonight. We're going to get new rankings. Looking forward to a little power hour tomorrow reacting to it. But the biggest story in college football in terms of affecting the rankings has to be the Jordan Travis injury, as what looked like an undefeated season, a playoff berth, just gets absolutely derailed. And in one of these late season cupcake games, which I hate to begin with, but how do we handle this? And Joshua, how should we handle this? Because we've seen in the NCAA tournament, like the basketball tournament, precedent for if a guy gets hurt, they will ding you from a seeding perspective. Now, maybe it's not as impactful because 64 teams get in. So at the end of the day, the basketball still kind of decides. But like, let's say you finish with an undefeated Florida State that beats Louisville, Tate Rodemaker at quarterback, do you start to entertain some potential one-loss candidates getting in over them because they no longer have Jordan Travis?
I think it's a very interesting thing. I think it comes down to how Florida State looks in this scenario. It's really hard to leave out an undefeated conference champ. I think that the CFP would have a lot of explaining to do here. But as you mentioned, if you like Alabama as a one-loss team, then you're probably having a discussion about what that would look like. If you are looking at an Oregon that's a conference champ and a one-loss team, you're having a discussion about what that looks like over Florida State. And so I think for Florida State, it's about how they perform. I'll take you back to 2014. It was the year that, first year of the playoff, the year that I won it when we were at Ohio State. We were on our third quarterback. And the reason we got in is because we beat Wisconsin in the conference championship game 59-0. We left no doubt to the committee about how good of a team that we were. And so if Florida State can go out there and they can erase some of the doubts, then I think that they should be in that conversation. If they can't, then of course I think you have to entertain some of these other teams. And the final thing that I'll say as well for tonight's rankings is this a time where Washington actually does get in the top 4? Jordan Travis is out. Washington just coming off of a big win on the road. Like, what do we do with them? And I think that kind of sets the table for what they really view about this Florida State team.
Yeah, going back to that 2014 season, I think it was really important how Cardale Jones played in that conference championship game, because it was a statement to say, hey, listen, we're Ohio State. Don't get it twisted. We got talent all over the roster, and to put up that many points, it was like, look, we're operating, without any hiccups. So that's going to be the challenge for Florida State. But you're right, Joshua. The conversation now is who's going to be in the top 4, because if the committee says they look at everything and take all things into consideration, you do have to factor, one, what Washington has done, of course. But now you have to acknowledge that losing Jordan Travis makes Florida State a worse team until we see otherwise. I think if there is ever a week to do it, Washington has to get into the top 4 tonight.
I mean, look, let's be clear about this. Even without the Jordan Travis injury, Washington needed to get in the top 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they just went into Corvallis in a game against an Oregon State team that was 18-5 over the last 2 seasons. I want to say they maybe lost 1 game in Corvallis over the last 2 years. That was an Oregon State Beaver team that loved to run the ball. Washington, awful defending the run. Horrible weather. Like, everything was coming up Beavs, and yet Penix, DeBoer, Odunze, they find a way to get the win. So Washington should absolutely be top 4. Do we see any? Oh, go ahead, AJ.
Well, the thing, I didn't want to show favoritism in this, but I don't understand how you can just say, does it open the door for Alabama? Like, I think, if anything, it opens the door for Oregon or Texas. I mean,
yeah, any one-loss team.
Right. I think those one-loss teams more than Alabama as of now. Like, the only way Alabama gets in, and I hate to say this because I want to see them in, but is if they beat Georgia, right? And then it calls a panic for the committee, and I'd be interesting to see how the hell they play that out. But I think, if anything, it opens the door for Oregon or Texas as of now.
Well, let's just remember, as Cardale Jones once said, I didn't come here to play school, okay? And it's championship season. Boys, how are we feeling about the game over there, red corner, blue corner? Are you getting the butterflies yet? How are you going to handle the next 72 hours or however long we got till kickoff? Well,
Jake said that he's not even sleeping well right now. He came in with a bad attitude this morning. I think he's nervous. For me, I'm confident. I'm confident in the fact that I know that Ohio State has been preparing for this game differently, right? There's a different urgency there. So I'm not predicting anything that's going to go on, but they ain't getting blown out like they did the last 2 years. I'll tell you that much.
Let me be very clear. I'm not sleeping well. It has nothing to do with nervousness. It has everything to do with excitement, because we've talked a lot about a lot of things that have nothing to do with the X's and O's on the field. On Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern, it's about the X's and O's. That's why I'm not sleeping. I'm so excited to see it.
He's nervous.
Oh, we gon' see, boys. But everybody's going to watch LSU A&M at 11 a.m., right? The same time? No? Okay. That'll just be me alone. All right. Well, I can't wait. It's going to be a ton of fun. We'll be breaking down all week long. College Football Power Hour coming up tomorrow. Joshua, Jake, thank you so much. Y'all have a great day. Those are the red corner, blue corner guys. Love them beating the rivals every single day, and you see it right here. The college football playoff rankings from last week. Fully expect Washington to jump up to number 4. Don't expect movement otherwise. You don't need to. Ohio State, Michigan didn't do anything that should change anything there. Cannot wait for the game. Oregon's going to stay at 6 because, again, they didn't do anything that shouldn't, even though I don't agree that Oregon should be at 6 necessarily. I still think that objectively, even though they played with fire, I'd have Texas at 6 because of their strength of the win over Alabama and Tuscaloosa, as well as a combined record of opponents. I would have Alabama at 7. I would have Oregon at 8. And it's not to disrespect Oregon. It's just to say, what are we really giving them credit for? They're one great team they played in Washington they lost to. Like, yes, they've beaten teams badly, and yeah, they beat Utah, but Utah's lost a few now. AJ, let's get into Florida State, right? A rivalry game, an interconference rivalry game, a unique one in that matter. Kind of love these sorts of games. And one that's taken on a way different shape than you would have just thought a week ago, right? Both the Gators and the Seminoles losing their starting quarterbacks. Jordan Travis out, but you might have missed it, but Graham Mertz hurt his collarbone. He is out as well, meaning we're going to get Tate Rodemaker leading FSU, Max Brown leading the Gators, and AJ, as a backup quarterback yourself, who right now is on the edge of being thrust back into NFL action in a gotta-have-it moment, what are the keys to success for these guys right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, anytime you come in, and what's going to help them, though, is they're not coming in mid-game, right? Like, you're going to have a week of preparation. You're going to have a week to figure out, all right, the OC is going to call this. He's going to shorten the game plan a little bit, most likely, because these guys haven't gotten a ton of reps. And he's going to run what you're comfortable with. So when it comes down to these games, especially rivalry games, like, you're going to have to take care of the football. Right? Like, whoever takes care of the ball and then whatever defense wins the turnover battle, that's who's going to win this game. I think Florida can really save Billy Napier's, tenure at Florida by winning this game. I think if he doesn't win this game, I think you see Florida fire Billy Napier probably right after the game. Because listen, and the reason I bring this up is I think Florida with A&M doing some searching, other big-time schools doing some searching, right? Even Mississippi State getting a young coach that could maybe want to come in there, like a Schumann, defensive coordinator for Georgia, come in there, have some fire in recruiting, right? That's a younger guy. I think Florida is not going to, want to miss out on possibly catching that big-name coach over a Texas A&M who they're going to try to go and get. So, I think this game's really for Billy Napier's career at Florida.
And make no mistake, like you alluded to, I call these things golden ticket games, right? They're your get out of jail free games, or you can have a lot of bad, but if you go and you ruin Florida State's season and you beat a very good Florida State team, people aren't going to care that much that Jordan Travis didn't play, because honestly, like, Florida State is still clearly better. Right? I mean, they're better on both lines of scrimmage. The weapons are far better, even though I really do like Pearsall out of Florida. So, like, FSU should still win this game, even with the caveat of it being in the swamp. AJ, we're going to talk rivalry games all week here on Rivals Down South. How appropriate, right? But consistently when we talk to you, you talk about taking care of the ball, how important it is, especially as the game gets bigger and the stage gets bigger. What about for one of these young cats when it goes awry? When Rodemaker throws a big picks or Brown does? How do you avoid just unraveling and falling apart?
Well, that's when you got to lean on, one, your OC has got to recognize that. All right, was it a terrible read to where, as an OC, hey, he was supposed to go here with the ball, but then he went here? Like, or is it a tipped interception, right? Something that you can't control, possibly. Now, if it's just an atrocious read and it's like, listen, now I'm losing confidence as a play caller because I don't know where this guy's going to read or where he's going to throw it when I call this certain play, and I know they're in this coverage and I'm expecting the ball to go here. So it varies from that sense as a play caller, but as a quarterback, now you really have to lean back on, okay, now let's hone in on doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to play outside of yourself. Focus on taking what the defense is going to give you, and eventually they'll give you the game. And that's a mindset you got to live by.
Well, and speaking of the game, we know it's going down up north between Michigan and Ohio State, but down south, we got the Iron Bowl coming up here this weekend. And it is, that is the heavyweight matchup of Southern college football. And our guy AJ has been a part of some epic Iron Bowl matchups. Let's go down some of those good and not so good moments when we get back. Yo, what's happening, y'all? Welcome back to Rivals Down South. T-Bob Hebert and AJ McCarron hanging out with you here in this College Football Playoff Tuesday. It's Zachary Whitfield in the chat, which you can always get involved in a couple of ways. YouTube.com/WatchStadium, or you want to send us some videos ahead of time, WatchStadium.com/submit. But Zachary asking, I got a question for you. Should a player be automatically out of the Heisman conversation just because he got hurt? This is 2 years in a row now. This has happened, obviously, with Hendon Hooker last year, ended up kind of spelling the end of his Heisman hopes. AJ, what do you think?
I think it depends on what point in the season it is. Listen, with one game left, no. I mean, if Jordan Travis's numbers are worthy of being up there, I mean, even though I don't think he's going to win it, but if they're able to take 5 guys, or if they're taking 4, however many, the Heisman decides to bring up there for the ceremony, listen, if his numbers are worthy of it, it doesn't matter that he got injured. Yes, he should be allowed to go and experience that with his family.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately for Travis, I just don't think he's one of the actual legitimate candidates this year. But yes, if like a Bo Nix or God forbid, any of it, if anybody like that, then they should absolutely still be under consideration. Let's talk Iron Bowls. And AJ, from 10 to 13, y'all had quite the run in this series. Like I said, this to me is like a loss. Like if the Egg Bowl is like a backyard wrestling brawl between just two rednecks who have like family feud with one another. This is like a heavyweight Las Vegas, Mandalay Bay sort of fight, right? Like all the stars show up. The setting's incredible. Let's work through some of your favorite memories. In 2010, Alabama rushes out to a 24-0 lead before the best football player I've ever seen, Cam Newton, engineers a comeback, and the Tigers win 28-27. What are your memories of this game?
Well, I remember, the Mark Ingram, I can't remember, he broke through for a run going down their sideline, and he got hit from behind, guy punched the ball out, and it probably rolled 20, 25 yards is what it seemed like when I think back about it. Literally 6 inches from the sideline. It went straight, never went either way, 6 inches. It went straight line all the way out of the end zone for a touchback. And then I also remember it being cold, sitting there the whole time, freezing my butt off. And then Greg getting knocked out with like less than 2 minutes left. And I had to go in the game with 86 yards to go, 52 seconds, no timeouts. And you want to talk about being in a situation, but it was still fun. But it was not a fun game to lose, though.
Yeah, this was also when Harvey Updike decided to poison the Toomer's trees. Rest in peace to the trees. Harvey Updike, an infamous SEC fan, but you didn't really play in that one, right? Okay, so now we start playing in 2011, and y'all handle Auburn, another rank-to-rank matchup, 42-14, 3 tuds by half. I mean, AJ making it look easy in 11, and that's because y'all knew that you didn't have to play in the SC championship, so y'all could just chill and go play in the Natty, right?
Well, we knew we had to win big that game or play well to make our case to be in the national championship. But I had a good first half. We came out throwing the ball, had a couple trick plays, hit a flea flicker for a big touchdown to Kenny Bell, another throwback, like a Y sneak to Brad Smelly, and it was a fun first half, fun game for sure.
Dude, quarterback ability to recall individual football moments always fascinates me. My old man's the same way. So here's where it starts to get real interesting, though. So you lose when you're on the bench, 28-27 to start. Then you beat them 42-14. Then in 2012, absolute domination, the most lopsided Iron Bowl in 64 years, 49-0. I mean, what stands out about this one to you?
It could have been a lot worse. That was Gene Chiswick's last game as head coach. And, we really could have thrown the ball all over them and kept doing it. I mean, we did the entire game, had a couple touchdown passes to Amari, had one late play action pass to Kevin Norwood. That was a big game, and it kept us rolling into the SEC championship.
But here's where we get to the insane thing about playing like sports where things are not scripted, right? Okay, let's just do some quick math here. The previous 2 years to 2013, y'all had beaten Auburn by a combined 91-14. Y'all are back-to-back national champs. You're number one in the country. It looks like you're cruising to be three-peat national champions. Like, again, this is why what Georgia's doing right now is so insane, because the margins on this stuff are just so infinitesimal and razor thin. It's 28-28, 1 second left on the clock. You line up for a 57-yard field goal, and then the kick six happens, and that alone stops you from winning a third natty. But AJ, you told me this is the only kick in your career that you did not hold for. How in the hell is that the case?
Well, we had struggled during that game, missed, I think, 2 field goals earlier in that game. I think we missed the extra point earlier in that game as well. And then we put in the backup kicker, and he had been working with the punter, Cody, on in practice during the week. And for whatever reason, Bobby Williams, our special teams coordinator, took me out and Cody held. And and then the kick happened. So, listen, if I was on there, somebody was getting hit. I don't care if it was Gus Malzahn getting decleated or drop kicked on the sideline. Like, somebody on that field at some point was going to get hit if I was out there. But it didn't happen. I saw him get to about the 40-yard line, and I knew the field was going to get rushed, so I started heading my butt straight to the locker room.
The way that you said Cody held was not unlike Dabo with Tyler a couple weeks ago on the coach's show. I mean, but again, guys, like really recognize that back-to-back champs, number one, and I mean, 2 missed field goals, a missed extra point at 100. It's hard to win a championship. And we'll see if the Iron Bowl has any surprises coming up for us this week. We'll continue to break it down all week long. Still to come, is Texas A&M actually a championship destination? Let's tackle it next here on Rivals Down South. What's happening, y'all? Welcome back to Rivals Down South. Beast Mode 567 in chat says Georgia Bulldogs, if they beat Alabama, might as well give him the trophy. We will see. Speaking of trophies, though, Texas A&M seems to think that, well, they are a place that you should win trophies. Ross Bjork, the AD, coming out and saying this is not an 8-4 job. You win the national championship, you'll get paid like a national championship coach. The problem is, AJ, I added up the last 19 years of A&M football, and their average record is 7.5-5. So it is kind of fact. But I will ask you this. Like, they do have all the elements on paper. And so, like, do a thought exercise. If you put Nick Saban in College Station, would he win a national championship?
I don't know. I mean, listen, and that's not taking anything away from Coach Saban by any means, but you never know what all you have to deal with within the school itself, the organization as a whole. Like, listen, I said this a week or two ago. A&M just thinks higher of themselves than what they are. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that, right? But you have to have proof to back it up. And the proof has not been there in the past for him.
Yeah, last national championship, 1939. Their only Big 12 championship, 1998. Last Southwestern Conference championship, 93. Again, they seem to be cursed. It all makes sense on paper. They got to hit the right guy. AJ, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We'll be back with more Rivals Down South, bringing the college football playoffs tomorrow here on Stadium.